Well, hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kamai, and this is AkamaiChats. I'm doing something a little bit different today. And if you hear my dog barking in the background, this is being filmed in real life. And, um, so be that as it may, let's go forward. So I am doing my 30-day challenge, and I had like 30 days worth of content planned out. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's crush this goal. And I record and then I'll schedule it for the next day or the next couple of days or whatever. And because when I'm like on a roll, I want to just keep recording videos. So I schedule them out, but I don't have anything scheduled for tomorrow. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to I have meetings tomorrow. I mean, I tell you guys, yeah, do your side job on the, after hours. So I don't want to take any of my work day to film these videos just for the sake of keeping to my 30-day challenge. However, I want to keep to my 30-day challenge. It's like 6:45 p.m. and I'm working on my video for tomorrow. And I was looking at all of my topics, I was like going gung-ho, and I plan stuff out. I'm a huge planner, right? And plan all these things out. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Let's do this. And I was looking at all my topics and I'm like, I'm just not feeling any of it. I'm just really not feeling any of it. So I was, toying with the idea of not recording and not posting anything for tomorrow. But, I'm driven and determined. So I want to make a video to post for tomorrow. And so I was grappling with it, right? What am I going to talk about? And I'm really a proponent for, going with the flow and not swimming upstream, because that's not the way things are supposed to go. If you fight, and I've done this before, you just push like a bull, just pushing through. We can do this. We can do this. It never bodes well. It never turns out, and it's always usually a really bad idea. So going with the flow, I was like doing my dishes and I was thinking, what am I going to talk about? So I decided I'm going to talk about my scrapbook heaven journey and, how I got there and what happened afterwards. So this is like kind of a little bit more in-depth detail. And the reason why I want to share it with you, I don't want to just be like talking about myself. The reason I'm sharing it with you is because I feel like you can get some lessons out of it, because I really want you guys to avoid the pitfalls and the heartache and the struggle that I had working through all of these things, right? Okay, I told you before, like, just don't do franchise, just don't do it, right? And yeah, some people can thrive doing a franchise, but you gotta have like a lot of them to make significant money. So anyways, back in like 2003 or so, my husband and I were looking at opening up like a brick and mortar business. We were looking at franchises because the systems are already set up, and that you get a lot of support from the franchise owner. And so we looked at a Subway. We were going to buy a Subway and go get like a loan to buy the Subway. And we found out, after we did some research, we found out that the reason this guy was selling his Subway is because, I don't know if they still do this, but every 5 years you are required to like rebrand, which means you've got to buy all new like branded materials. You've got to change the decor and the inside of your restaurant, and that's all on your dime, honey, your dime. They don't help you with any of it. So the guy was selling it because he said, well, the owner didn't tell us, it was the people working there told us, that it was going to cost $100,000 for them to rebrand the whole store. And the guy didn't have the money and he didn't want to pay for it. So he was trying to sell his franchise. And we're like, oh, we don't want to do that, because in 5 years, that's going to be us, right? So luckily we, discarded that idea. We just abandoned that idea. Okay, so what are we going to do next? So we did some research, and my husband found a Nestle cafe. And you ask, what is a Nestle cafe? Exactly. I don't even think they exist anymore, right? We looked at Mrs. Fields. but that wasn't going to work out because they have to mail, you have to ship you frozen cookie pucks. That's what Mrs. Fields was, is that like pre-made, the batter is all pre-made and you just pop it in the oven and there's your cookies. So we didn't want to do that because we're in Hawaii and it's like going to be very costly to ship all these products in a, refrigerated container. So we didn't want to do that. And then so we thought, well, Nestle Cafe, because it looked like it was going to be a better opportunity. And there weren't too many of them around. And so we thought, ground floor kind of thing. If there's not, like, here's a clue. If there's not too many, if there's not a lot of competition, or if there's zero competition, there's a reason. Okay. It's because somebody else tried it and it didn't work. So, but do your research to find out, more about whatever kind of business that you're either trying to buy or open, acquire, whatever the case may be. So we looked at Nestle Cafe and we thought, yeah, this looks pretty good, because what a Nestle Cafe is, it's by Nestle. So they served only their brands of coffee and they served Nestle brand cookies. And again, it was like those frozen hockey pucks that they mail you and you got to put it in the oven and that's your cookies, right? They didn't have any Nestle Cafe in Hawaii. So we thought, yeah, this is going to be great. They don't have any here. We're going to be the first ones and, maybe we can open multiple. Well, we came to Vegas on a vacation. Actually, we looked at where all the Nestle Cafe locations were. And there was one in Vegas at the Miracle Mile, the Miracle Mile Mall. And so we took a vacation. We came to Vegas and checked it out, and we just sat there and was watching the traffic and stuff like that. It was in a mall. And, when you're in a mall and you're selling cookies and you're baking cookies, that smell draws people in. Smell of coffee draws people in. But unless you can get into a mall, which is like hella expensive, it's just going to be an uphill battle, like trying to make money and, pay all your bills and stuff. So, but we were like, yeah, we still we liked it. We wanted to open one. And, things didn't really pan out for that. And actually, no, we were gonna open it and we were gonna move to Vegas. We were gonna open another one in Las Vegas. Now that was a really bad idea because in retrospect, we're not from here. Yeah, we don't really know the market. We don't know the market at all. And we don't know what the market can bear, or there are other cookie places or whatever. So we were gonna go forward with that. So we started making plans to move and selling our stuff and investing a lot of time and energy into this plan. But that was all put to a stop because that was in 2003. In early 2004, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. So we decided, well, that's not a good idea while you're trying to, recover and go through treatment and all. The treatment was like long. It was like 8 months of chemo and then 5 years of follow-up treatment with, drugs you got to take for 5 years after that. So we decided, well, God wants us to stay home and not go anywhere. So we decided just to stay home. And after I went through my chemo and, then after that whole chemo was done, and then about 6 months later, we were like, oh, okay, shall we take a look at opening up another business again? Because I was feeling good and feeling healthy. So we looked at a bunch of things and decided, since, my husband told me, like, oh, you really like scrapbooking. Why don't we look at that? So I started looking at the competition and everything. And we decided, yeah, let's open up a scrapbook store. And we got a leasing agent. And so if you're looking for a brick and mortar, you can get a leasing agent because they get paid from the building, that, people who own the building, they give them a commission. So it didn't cost us anything to get a leasing agent. And she helped us look at some different properties. And we finally settled on one that was a brand new shopping center. It was a new build and it was only dirt, right? There was nothing there. So they had a projected open date for, like, I don't know, April of the following year. So we did our business plan. I took a class on how to write a business plan so that I could qualify for some funding. So we were moving forward with that, and we went to a scrapbook convention and we bought a whole bunch of supplies. This was like in October because we were supposed to be open in January or February. Yeah, we were going to start to to be able to move in. So we bought all of these supplies, right? It was like really a lot. I think it was like probably 15 or $20,000 worth of merchandise. And then so we had to, everything came in, and then the shopping center construction was delayed and delayed and delayed. So we had all of these products in our garage, like and fixtures and everything. We had a whole scrapbook store in my garage. So, and again, I'm sharing this with you because hopefully you can get something from my mistakes, right? And like, big mistake is thinking that construction will always be on schedule. It won't. Okay, it just won't. So we finally, the shopping center was just, it was delayed more than 6 months, probably 8 months. And looking back, I could have told them, you know what, I'm backing out of this contract. I'm just going to cut my losses and not open this store. That's what I should have done. But no, Bull wants to plow through and just like, we can do this. I'm going to open my store. So instead of doing that, we decided, let's go look for a temporary location until our permanent location is ready. Because by the time this had happened, it was when my company said, you got to pick. Are you going to work for us, or are you going to quit? You can't do both. So I decided to quit, and then we got a temporary location, and it was kind of in an unsavory area. So it was not ideal, but it was kind of small and it was affordable. So we went forward with that, and we were, starting to get some customers and stuff. And then we eventually moved into, we had to do the build out for Scrapbook Heaven. And what that means is we had to, they put up the drywall inside, but we had to put everything in there. Like, we had to put fixtures on the walls, and we put like pegboard all over the walls. We bought in all of our fixtures. We had to install, we had to contract somebody to put in the air conditioning unit. And that was a huge undertaking. And anyway, so we went forward, and we finally moved in, and we opened it. And, it looked like a franchise. People thought it was a franchise because of my marketing background, everything was branded, and it looked perfect. And we had, everything was, using the shoppers, the retail psychology, designing the store and everything. And it did great. So and then we stayed open for a couple of years, 3 years, and the economy just crashed because of the mortgage, the whole mortgage crash, and people's hobby money dried up, and then we had to close it. Now, looking back in what had happened, we should have kind of pivoted, right? Because we were a hobby store. And when the economy is bad, people's hobbies, they don't want to spend money on their hobbies. So, and this was a brick and mortar store. It's not like we could just, not record a video anymore and close our online business, whatever. We were stuck. We were in a lease. We were tied in a lease. That's another thing. When you open up a brick and mortar, you have to sign a lease, and you are responsible. You are legally obligated to that lease. And, barring anything like, filing for bankruptcy and going out of business, you can't back out of a lease. And I think, if you're going to open a brick and mortar, you need to have an attorney review your lease to see what your options are if, you need to get out of it. Right. So that would be something, very smart to do. And I did not do that. So we were tied to it. And when we first opened, our sales were like great. They were like, I think they were like $35,000 in sales per month. And, with a 65% markup, it was pretty good. It did pretty well. But, the rent was pretty high. It was like $4,000 a month for that 1,000-foot space. And so I saw it coming, right? When the schools shut down for one day. They had furlough Friday. So every Friday, the school system closed. And everybody all the women that shopped in my store, they had to spend money on daycare for their kids who were going to be out one day a week. And so I saw it coming. I saw us circling the drain. And if we could have pivoted and done a different kind of business, like kind of just changed what the business model, because it's your business, you can do whatever you want, right? We could have rebranded ourselves or whatever. Um, we could have saved it. We could have saved it. But that my income was 100% from the store. My husband did not make a lot of money. And so we were struggling to pay the bills. And it was like, let me tell you, when you have financial heartache like that, it affects every aspect of your life. It is painful. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Yeah, it was painful. It affected our relationship. It affected, a lot of my relationships with people. Kind of got isolated, and I was just so consumed with trying to save my store. And if this happens to you guys, just project in the future, right? You always got to project in the future. So when we had our sales, it was like 35,000, and then it went down to like 25,000, and then it went down to 15,000. At the middle of the month, I could always project, and I looked at our sales history. At the middle of the month was the halfway mark for what we were going to end up at the end of the month, right? So if the middle of the month wasn't where I wanted it to be, we did some extra marketing, we did some sales, and I had a newsletter that went out. So we would push the sales, like, 20-30% off or whatever, just to draw people in, right? To entice them to come in. So when you are able to forecast your sales like that, and it's just projections, right? But you look at historical data and you look at all the other factors that affect the ability to make your goal at the end of the month. I already saw it. I already saw that we weren't going to make it. And we needed to make, like, retail, we needed to do at least 15,000 a month to meet our bills, because you're not going to go ahead and spend that whole 15,000 on your expenses and paying yourself. You got to save enough to reinvest in your inventory, if that's the kind of business you have. Well, yeah, if you've got a brick and mortar, you've got some kind of inventory, right? Food is inventory. Scrapbook stuff is in inventory. You sell shoes, that's inventory. So you can't just blow your whole sales on paying yourself. You have to know what your nut is, right? What your hard costs every month that you gotta pay. So I already knew, because that we weren't going to make it, because our sales were dwindling, and it was like 12,000 one month, and so we were like in the hole. And then the final straw was in January of 2010. January of 2010. My daughter was working with me, and I told her, if we don't, by the 15th of February, by the 15th of January, if we're not going to be at least at $10,000 in sales, we're going to have to shut down the store. So we ended up at $6,000 at the end of January. And let me tell you, like, you cannot sleep, you cannot eat, you're trying to figure out how you're going to get out of this mess. And so February 1st, we sent out an email to our clients with the sad news that we're going to be shutting down. And we didn't do the whole, when a store is liquidating, like 20% off, 25% off, and you like gradually put the percentage up. We went straight for the 50, like 50% off everything. We're shutting down. We're going to be done by the end of February, because I just couldn't do it anymore. We just could not. Crying every day. It was gut-wrenchingly painful to watch your store go down in flames like that, because when you build something like that, it's like birthing a child, right? You raised it, you brought it from nothing and you raised it up, and it became this beautiful thing, and then you saw it like withering away and eventually just dying. It was like it was a death, really. And so we did that 50% off straight away by the middle of February. We wanted to be able to shut down like the 20th of February so that we could spend the rest of the month clearing everything out. We sold all of the fixtures and everything, sold everything. And after that was done, we closed our doors, and then I had to make, the decision, how are we going to get out of this debt? Because, we didn't, we weren't a cash business, right? We had loans. I mean, I didn't like come up with, you know, 75 grand to open up this store just from my savings account. We had loans. And unfortunately for us, we did the thing that people told us not to do. And I'm going to tell you right now, do not take out. Robert Kiyosaki, you're a liar. Okay. And it's because I went based on his advice. It's back in the like early 2000s, right? Pull out the equity from your home and start a business. That's exactly what we did. So we pulled out all this equity and we got loans. So we had loans tied to this obligation. And, when the store went away, I had to go back and go get my old job back. But we were not making enough money to pay the regular bills, to pay off that home equity loan. And so we were still drowning. So I went back to go get my job. And then, as luck would have it, at the end of the year, at the end of 2010, they laid me off because everything is like 2 years behind, right? When everything was like, going to hell in a handbasket on the mainland, we were doing fine. But because, it was 2010 is when everything was crashing in Hawaii. It happened in 2008 here in the mainland. 2010 is when it was affecting us. And so at the end of 2010, they laid me off. And so here I am, no income, and I still have these huge bills. Talk about freaking out. So I thought, I filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy at that time. So I could, wipe out my credit cards, but you can't wipe out a home equity loan when you're living in the house. So they let us keep that. And we were just like scrambling, trying to find a way to pay all the bills. And, we couldn't keep up. And it took us 5 years of not being able to pay the mortgage, and everything is falling behind. And, so finally we decided to file for Chapter 13. And by that time, our home had accumulated a lot of equity, because in Hawaii, the houses accumulate equity like very quickly. And so in the span of 5 years, we had an extra like 400,000 in equity in the house. So we renovated the house, put it up for sale, sold it, paid off all the debt, discharged the bankruptcy, and moved to the mainland. And so that was my story about Scrapbook Heaven. And what I want to share with you is that, franchises, brick and mortar businesses, things like that, where you have a lot of inventory, you got to be really, really careful. Okay. Especially, like I'm talking to seniors or people getting ready to retire. Please do not open a brick and mortar business when you're getting ready to retire. So, and you don't want to have that obligation hanging over your head. It's painful. It is painful. I met talking about a senior owning like a franchise. Okay. So here in Vegas, I had a client, and we wanted to put together a calendar, right? An annual calendar, and had pictures of the team, and it was super cute. And I found this company. It's a print. They were a printer, and that could print this calendar for us, because they didn't want to like find somebody in China and ship it off. I don't do that either, because if you don't know people in China, they can super duper rip you off. So there's this woman and her husband, so like an older couple. They were probably like, I don't know, like 70. They bought this printer franchise. And you could tell when you walk in, and everything looks like it came out of, like it was mass produced. And so decided to go with her to print our calendar. And this woman knew nothing about printing. She knew like nothing about printing. And so, how can I put this? So we had a calendar, right? You know how to make a calendar, right? January through December. It's obvious. So I had all the files, and I had, emailed her the files, and she didn't really know what to do with all the files. And I'm like, you put it together. It's a calendar. This is the picture part. This is the date part. Try to figure it out. And so she said, well, you have to put everything in order. And I'm like, you can't read. January comes first, February comes second. What? Don't you understand? The file names was January image, January date, February image, February date. Like, come on. But these people bought a franchise because they thought it would be good to do a retirement business, buy this franchise. She knew nothing about printing. She knew very little about printing. In fact, she didn't even do the printing. She had to ship it off to somebody else to do it. So, long story short, a couple of years later, when we wanted to do a calendar again, I went back to the shop, or I called her, and had a new owner, because they sold it. And they decided to really retire. So when you're getting ready to retire, please do not get into a franchise, because it is not a relaxing kind of business. It's a very stressful, and the margins that you can make don't let them fool you. It's terrible. There was a Taco Del Mar. Do you guys remember that? Taco Del Mar by my scrapbook store. And it was these two older gentlemen. And they were partners. They were like business partners, husband kind partners. And they opened up the Taco Del Mar, and it was disastrous. It was disastrous. They had been open only for like 2 years. And then one day, we came to work, and it was all boarded up. They were only there for 2 years. And so like one of them ran off to Mexico, and the other one, who knows? So anyways, if you're getting ready to retire, please do not open a franchise. The other ideas that I had shared with you about was like using, the skills you already have to do like a little community business where you can walk people's dogs, or do your hobby. Like if you like baking, or if you like sewing, you could take orders for people and make like baby blankets and things like that. Go to craft fairs and sell your things. So just stick with stuff like that, and please don't open a franchise or a brick and mortar, because you don't know. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control where people spend their money. So why would you be sitting in a store that you have to pay every month? You got to pay for electric. You got to pay for rent. You got to pay for employees if you have them. And you've got to pay for the employee benefits like medical and whatever else, and employee payroll taxes, you got to pay your employees payroll. That's not a retirement business. That's not what you want to do. You want to like enjoy your retirement years, but make some income doing the thing that you love while you're at it. Okay, so that's really just the gist of my message. I wanted to share with you guys that story about Scrapbook Heaven, because if you're getting ready to retire, you want to look at a way to transition into a business. Don't get into a brick and mortar, because it's a huge obligation, and you're going to be tied to it for a while. So I would really love, if you guys are watching this video, I would really love for you to comment, put in the comment section, like, what you would like for me to talk about. Cause I've got all these years of marketing experience and I've got like a ton of clients that I can tell you stories about, like just a million of them. Like I remember, um, um, Rosalani Ice Cream is from Maui, and she was my client, and there was a story there. And then we had this guy that did he fixed up appliances and resold them in his shop. And then so I've got like a ton of stories I can share with you guys. So write in the comments what you want me to, to like maybe do a deep dive on this kind of a business or that kind of a business or whatever. So anyways, that is the conclusion of my story. So what I hope you had learned today was, franchise bad, brick and mortar difficult, could be possibly painful, but I don't want to be like a negative Nelly. It's, some people do enjoy a really great brick and mortar business, but if you're trying to retire, don't take on that huge obligation. It's a huge financial obligation. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. That's all I had to share today. My name is Annie Kamai, and I thank you for watching my video, and we will talk with you again soon. You guys have a great day. Like and subscribe.